Welcome to the Beyond the Mat podcast, an in-depth talk show discussing exclusively WWE topics.
My name's Rick Boogs, and I came to rock with the Beyond the Mats podcast that is beyond the M-A-T-T podcast.
All right, we're back on the Beyond the Mat podcast tonight on September 29, 2022. I got Brad and Frank with me tonight. Brad, how are you doing?
How you doing, Matthew? It's great to be back.
All righty, and Frank, how about you?
Great, thanks for having me.
All right, it's good to have you as well. We're going to talk a little bit of WWE in the past week. A lot's been going on. We're marching our way to Extreme Rules in Philadelphia. I will be in the house for that show. Talk about some things that happened on SmackDown and Raw, but first, remember to follow us on Twitter at BeyondMattWWE. We're available on all podcast platforms. Give us a 5-star rating or review. Check us out on YouTube, everywhere else you can find podcasts. We're basically there. Get right into it. SmackDown started out with a pretty good opening segment with the Bloodline. Sami Zayn was great in this one. It's interesting what's happening with Sami Zayn and the Bloodline. They come out and it's funny. SmackDown started at 8 p.m. Central Time, and by the time the Bloodline was finally in the ring, it was about 9:10 Central Time or something or 9:10 Eastern Time, whatever. It seems like it takes them about half an hour to get to the ring, but regardless, they get in there and they go through the normal stuff, and then they're exiting the ring with the music, and Sami Zayn says, "Wait, I want to say something," and Roman Reigns says, "Well, why are you talking?" Asks him to take the Bloodline shirt out that he's wearing. Sami Zayn's been wearing this Bloodline shirt, while everybody else has the newer ones with the red writing on it and everything. He's got like the one that they sell at the merchandise stands. You would see fans wearing. He's always had that one, and he says to take it off, and then starts getting a little bit angry, and then Jay physically rips it off of him, and then you can just see Sammy getting, distraught. He's pleading with Roman here. The fans are booing this. And then Roman gives him his own Bloodline shirt. It says SZ Honorary Us in the same red lettering that the Usos have on their shirts. And so, the fans like this. So it's interesting that Sami Zayn's a heel here, and he's involved with a heel faction, and the fans are cheering on his involvement in it. Yet they are a heel faction, so the things that they do get booed. I mean, the Bloodline themselves, biggest thing going on in WWE right now, and have been for a while. So what did you guys think of this segment overall? And then I've seen a lot of analysis on Sami Zayn. I think he's been doing great in his role, and a lot of people are saying, eventually I can see after Roman Reigns is finished with his championship run that Sami Zayn could be a top tier guy for the next decade or so. And I certainly think that the talent is there, the entertainment's there, the in-ring capabilities there, but I don't view Sami Zayn as a guy who's going to be the world champion and carrying the company. I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody being that talented and that, adored by the crowd, being a top level mid-card guy or even bottom of the top of the card. But I just don't see him being, the guy in WWE. But I've heard some pretty reputable analysts saying that they can see it that way. But my point here is, where do you see the end game going with the Sami Zayn and Bloodline thing? For me, it's that eventually there's going to be a rift somewhere. One of the two is going to turn on the other. I would think it's going to be, Jey Uso or maybe Jimmy Uso turning on Sami Zayn, and then Kevin Owens being the real friend to Sami Zayn as a babyface, coming to his rescue or something like that. And then now we have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn as a babyface duo that would take on the Usos, challenge them for their undisputed tag team titles. Probably by the time this all plays out, it'd probably be like a WrestleMania match or something like that. But that's a team that I could see unseating the Usos. But that's where I see Sami Zayn going, in that direction, as a top level babyface, but not a world championship contender. Certainly in a championship tag team with Kevin Owens, because Kevin Owens as well, I don't see him as a world champion in the future. But overall, what do you guys think of the segment, and what do you think about how everything with Sami is going to play out?
Yeah. First of all, I thought it was a really great segment because I think everyone can relate in some way to like being the person that wants to be in the cool group and really like not really feeling accepted. And that was kind of the brilliance of it. And Sammy's acting was incredible. He was so distraught when they were about to rip that shirt off of him. It almost felt like a mafia don which is Roman, or ordering his henchmen to do like an assassination or like a killing where they were going to just take him out. And then to see the tables turn like that was honestly, it was kind of heartwarming, man. It was pretty cool. And I'd like Frank's thoughts on it as well, but I thought it was just a tremendous segment, top to bottom.
Absolutely. I mean, you both bring up great points. I engaged in full-blown propaganda when this scene came out, because I got my kids in here and I said, guys, my children are 8 and 12. And I'm like, this is wrestling. This is what you need to see. This is emotion. This is storyline. And I mean, a couple points. Can Sami Zayn be the guy? If there's anything that he's shown over all these years, if he could do any role, he could do any role. I certainly don't think people in charge before thought he was the guy, and he was given different roles and he was great at it. Where I see it going is exactly what you say, Matt. I think the storytelling is long-term, and it's Kevin Owens. Eventually they get back together. Fans will love that because they've been in and out of, friendship with one another, this long-term feud. They would be the perfect team to unseat the Usos. As far as, listen, I don't know all the behind the scenes stuff. Is The Rock coming back? Is The Rock going to fight Roman? Is that for the title? But imagine Cody coming back in a WrestleMania. Is Cody against Roman, unseating him, getting that belt. And then you've got Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's unseating the Usos. They finally take down the Bloodline. That's the long-term storytelling that I think fans want. The fans that have been through WWE for years, this is what they've been dying for. And I think it's, it was missing for a while because you might have had one person's vision and that might change week to week. And now they're doing this long-term storytelling where you're going to get a payoff. It's not going to just pivot in 180 the next week. If they stick with this is going to pay off for fans big time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Brad, you mentioned about, Sammy wanting to be in the cool gang and all that. And that's one of the things that is sort of interesting, because I agree with you with that dynamic there and everybody can relate to that. But speaking of like the cool club, Roman Reigns is so cool and fans are just so drawn to him. And he is such a draw now, especially with him being part-time. And you don't get to see him as much. I used to go to house shows and SmackDowns and everything. He was there every time. Even if he wasn't on SmackDown, he was in the main event dark match. Yeah. And every single house show he was doing. I was at the last house show that he did. And at some point in April or May or something like that. I was at the last one he main evented against Drew McIntyre. And they went 45 minutes, great match. But and then he signed the new contract and has less time. So long story short, more of a draw now. Now with all this stuff going out and people loving Sami Zayn and cheering the fact that he's accepted by the cool kids. Do you think WWE has to tread lightly here, having this heel faction in the Bloodline that they want to keep heel right now, it seems, and fans getting to the point where they like it so much that they're cheering it. And now we have Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel facing Logan Paul, and nobody really likes Logan Paul. So, and now that's in Saudi Arabia. So it's not something that the fans in the States, they had to worry about getting that reaction. But is the Bloodline getting to the point where Roman Reigns is going to come out and get cheered rather than booed? And do they have to do extra work to put him up against certain baby faces who are going to clearly illustrate that Roman's the heel and his opponent is the baby face, and so that the opponent gets cheered and Roman gets booed, versus the opposite, which is what they don't want to happen?
It's weird, man, because your point is well taken. I hear you, but it's kind of weird because there's certain times where like you hate Roman, but clearly that segment was made to make him extremely likable. I mean, that was a really nice thing. He's hugging Sami Zayn. He's, he's throwing him a t-shirt. He's saying, "Hey, you're in the club. Congratulations." That was not like a segment to make, but then you have a situation like with Drew McIntyre where he's just the most hated thing going because no one wants to see him win. So it's weird the way it kind of flips and flops. And, we've seen a lot of emotion each way towards Roman, but I think, the main factor is that he is so cool. And it's just one of those things that just transcends good and bad, in my opinion. I mean, Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that we're in a time where now the problem will be that the crowd is cheering Roman Reigns, when for the longest time that's what they wanted to do and they were booing him. But I don't think they were ever booing Roman. I think they were always booing how he was being presented. Now he's presented the way he always should have been. He's a cool guy. I mean, and the Bloodline has this NWO effect going, right? They are cool, so they're going to be cheered. I think, though, if they put him up against guys like a Cody, people are going to cheer Cody. Will the crowd be split? I don't think so. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens against the Usos, no way that the Usos are going to get cheered over them. I think they're pretty safe there. But the Logan Paul thing, I don't know. I look at the Saudi Arabia show as a complete bizarro world what if show, because, I mean, I don't know what the intent is. Are they putting out Logan Paul in a way where they thought he would get cheered? I don't think so. I mean, and Logan Paul, he certainly could. I mean, you certainly could present him. The guy's really, really good. I mean, he's taken to it. But when he comes out, I mean, when Roman Reigns, I forget the verbiage he used, but he was like, "I never heard of you because I'm not a 15-year-old girl. I don't YouTube." Like that was, yeah, we're cheering you, Roman. I mean, I don't know. So I don't know where they're going with that. That's just, you know what I think? I think that show is almost booked by the venue, because I thought years ago it was, I want to see Yokozuna and the Ultimate Warrior. And they're like, well, we're going to have a problem with that one.
And they basically brought out two fake guys, a fake Yokozuna and a fake Warrior.
They could have done that. I mean, Listen, I'm a huge Shawn Michaels fan. I didn't see that match when he came back. Like, to me, that was good for you. Grab a bag of money and good for you. But, and there's been some good matches on it. And I think there was a Brock Roman match that was in canon. It was like, you needed to watch that show. You couldn't really avoid it. But I mean, that I don't think it matters who they cheer or boo there. And I think at least I'm going to be cheering Roman on that one. Come on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when it's titled Crown Jewel, it is supposed to be, like you're saying, more of a detour show, not really one that you have to follow the storyline necessarily, or that's really included in the overall storyline of everything. If we're saying that from WrestleMania to WrestleMania, there's a storyline that plays all out and then pays off at WrestleMania. But then again, in February, we had Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia suddenly. So like you had to see that if you want,
Yep.
and I think that was a ploy for them to get more people to tune into it that normally wouldn't, just because it's the Saudi Arabia show that's, the greatest Royal Rumble or Super Show, just something that's not a show that you really need to watch if you're following the product and the storylines. And I think that this match is one that you really don't need to follow. They had to build to it a little bit, but ultimately I don't see there's any way that Logan Paul can win this match. And I was talking to Brad about this, and I was talking to him about like the fact that like, Elimination Chamber was down there and they had to follow, stick with everything going with the storylines. But then, the other shows that we have seen most of the time in the past, really, you don't. I mean, I think last year's Crown Jewel that was around this time kind of was part of storyline because it had the Roman Brock match, like you said. And, but this Logan Paul one, I wonder if they're going to put Logan Paul out there just for the Saudi fans because the Saudi prince wants it. And, they'll do whatever the Saudi prince is going to want because, the amount of money that's involved in it and all that stuff. But I wonder if, so Elimination, Saudi prince might be like, we want that chamber down here. We want to see what that's all about. And we want Brock Lesnar to look like Godzilla beating the hell out of somebody. And so they did that for them in February. And maybe now they're like, we want Roman Reigns and Logan Paul, and we want to see him destroy him like animal. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Ironically, I heard that Brock is actually booked for Crown Jewel. I don't know who he would be facing, but I heard he's going to be on the show.
Well, it'd be nice if he faced Karrion Kross and kicked his ass.
Oh, killed him. Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, man, this is, look, obviously we've taken a little detour to the Logan Paul stuff and everything, but ultimately, it all circles back to Roman and what's going on with him. And I think that, everything's in the right spot. And I do agree with Frank that we'll have a long-term payoff here in the end with, with a lot of different things, probably the Cody angle at the end of the day.
Yeah, I do think that we'll probably see Cody return, Royal Rumble time, probably have him and Seth as the final two in the Rumble. Maybe we'll see Cody.
Him and Austin Theory as the final two, and I could see that too.
Yeah, I could also see Sami Zayn as the final two with Cody, and Sami Zayn gets eliminated. He's sent in there by the Bloodline he tells them, listen, I'll win this so that way nobody can challenge you at WrestleMania. I'll never do it to you. And then Sami Zayn loses, and then that starts the falling out with the Bloodline, possibly. Who knows? That's an idea. I don't know. I get Austin Theory with the briefcase. I'd really like to see where they're going with that, because I think they're going to continue to do this. He tries to cash in on stuff and then just gets taken out before he even can.
Every time.
Yeah.
I agree.
The one at Clash of the Castle was hilarious.
So great. So funny.
And you called it too. You said, hey, maybe Tyson Fury just knocks him out right before. And that's exactly what happened.
Unbelievable.
So maybe their idea is they're going to tear him down before they build him up, because I still think they've got their sights on him to be that next guy. I think. I
do too.
Yeah. I don't think that changed with the change in, Triple H taking over. I think he's still their guy, but they're going to make him earn it. Because I think fans today, they want to see them earn it more. You can't have a guy just come in, even if they're great, and it's weird because I've talked about this with my friends. It's like, Hulk Hogan comes in back in the day. No one sat there and said, oh, he didn't pay his dues. It's like, oh no, he's captured everyone's, he's got this charisma. Guys that have that today, sometimes as a baby face, it won't work. If you've got the talent, you can come in fresh and be like an MJF. I know I'm jumping shit, but that's a guy that hey, I'm running, you've got the personality. With Austin Theory, they're going to make him get embarrassed many times over. And then eventually I think he'll start his rise. So he's got time. This guy's like 6 or something?
24, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got all kinds of time and he's got all kinds of potential. And they did the right thing in bringing him up as a heel to let him grow that way, because that way, same as like when you were saying with Roman Reigns' initial push, he was pushed as a baby face and sort of shoved down everybody's throat. Everybody booed him out of the building because they didn't want Roman Reigns shoved down their throat. But so people were just booing that and booing that and booing that. When you bring in a guy as a heel, people get the booing of the guy out of their system, and then they get to know the guy and they get to learn the good things that, the highlights of the guy. And then it makes that eventual turn all the more. It makes, basically what I'm trying to say is that the better, if you can make it as a heel, the better the heel you are, the bigger the baby face you will become. And so I can see that happening certainly down the road for Austin Theory. And I think we all are in agreement with that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So, other big news on SmackDown, Liv Morgan has her Extreme Rules match at Extreme Rules with Ronda Rousey for her SmackDown Women's Championship. She won this after winning the Money in the Bank, big, crowd pleasing moment. And, I was all for it at first. She won by, getting a compromised Rousey into a roll up. Then she basically wins it with another roll up at SummerSlam, but not a traditional roll up. She was in an armbar tapping out, and she starts getting booed by the fans because of the way that she's conducting herself in her promos and saying that I tapped out at 3, not 2, whatever. And people, I don't know that they expected her to get booed and things like that. And they've done a good job of keeping most of her segments with Ronda backstage or pre-taped, so that way that they're both not exposed to the crowd at the same time. So that way people aren't booing the wrong person, and so that the story can sort of play out, because you had her out there with Ronda and they're both, Ronda's not a great promo at all. I mean, I think she's gotten better ever since she beat up Adam Pearce. But at the same time, you don't want the fans getting behind the wrong person live on television when you can't control it. But when you have them in a controlled environment backstage, you can get the picture across. Now, I'm not the biggest Liv Morgan fan in the world. Brad knows this. I try to plead my case to him all the time, and I point out every single thing that is wrong about her. The truth be told, I like Liv Morgan overall. I don't like her as the women's champion, top of the card, the top person. I think she's just fine in the middle of the card as that underdog baby face, that scrappy, just middle of the road wrestler. I think that her wrestling skills are middle of the road. I think that her promo needs work, but I think that there's so many female wrestlers that are superior to her. Now, as far as this story goes, she's facing Ronda now for the 3rd time. She's been sort of looking a little bit heelish in some of her promos and some of her interactions. She was up in that skybox the one time looking very pompous. Just the way that she spoke to Ronda when she challenged her to the Extreme Rules match, she seemed kind of heelish. And then in this match, you got Lacey Evans, who decimates her for however many minutes it was, 7 minutes. And then for no reason whatsoever, goes and gets a kendo stick and starts waving it around, just wasting time. Liv Morgan ends up getting the better of her, hits Oblivion, pins her, and then beats her with the kendo stick, does some sort of side Russian leg sweep with the kendo stick into the barricade, sets up a table, puts Lacey Evans on there, and then does a beautiful senton off the top ropes, which I kind of wish that they would do these kind of things with the women more. I mean, the guys do it all the time, smashing the announce table and just taking a table out and putting somebody through that, or smashing somebody through the timekeeper barricade. We don't see that much of this sort of violent stuff with the women. But obviously the point of this was to demonstrate that Liv Morgan can hang in an Extreme Rules match or can do these types of things. And so, one, how do you receive Liv Morgan as the women's champion? How do you feel about her title run so far? We'll go to Frank first on this one. And how do you see her match with Rousey playing out at Extreme Rules?
Well, yeah, first, I mean, as far as Ronda Rousey, I agree with you. She sort of came into her own with everything with Adam Pearce, where she almost had that Stone Cold-esque way about her. And it's not a knock on her, but no, her promo skills weren't there. I almost think of like a Paul Heyman, like, all right, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You're not The Rock. We're not doing that with you. So I think Ronda's right where she should be. Liv Morgan, I'm confused. I like Liv. I think she's fine, but I don't know how they were writing her. Like, as a story guy, as a character guy, I wonder if there was a change. And if I have this correct, I think the first time she beat Ronda, it was a cash in. So obviously that's always heelish. The whole Money in the Bank thing, that's heelish. I mean, you're beating them after. The right way to do it as a baby face is how John Cena did it, I think, against RVD, and he lost, that time. Like, that's how a good, baby face does it. But all right, she beats Ronda. You have a rematch. And she tapped clearly when she was pinning Ronda, which, all right, that's fine too. Set it up for another match. But then she came out there acting like, I beat you. So everything was heelish. I don't understand, but they seem to not want to book her as a heel. So I'm wondering if there was a change, or we're going to get a payoff for this where she's fooling the fans. I'm this girl from wherever, New Jersey, and I've always been the underdog. And then she's just going to turn, and Ronda's going to say, I knew this about you. You can't hang with the rest of us. And, you're a fraud. I'm not. And, Ronda beats her. I don't know. But right now it's very, up and down, back and forth with, are you a heel? Are you a babyface? Because there's not a lot to cheer about right now for her. Am I off? I don't know.
I agree with that. I don't think that she's given us much to. I mean, it's nice to see somebody do a senton through a table to Lacey Evans.
Amazing. Yeah.
But she's not. She's just not coming out with a lot of baby face type things that you would just can kind of get behind. It just feels very worse and very like, it's interesting because the Money in the Bank was Vince, in the Vince McMahon era, and the SummerSlam match was a Triple H era, but it was, still the Vince McMahon sort of, the whole card was built by Vince McMahon, but Triple H had to run it his way. And they chose to do a match where Ronda basically destroyed Liv the whole time, and then put her in the armbar and had her lose by having her shoulders down while Liv was tapping out. So the way they booked that it didn't do Liv any favors. And I don't know if they planned on her getting booed coming out on SmackDown 2 weeks in a row after that. And so I wonder if they're pivoting behind the scenes, and they're, Brad, I know you'll probably share your thoughts on what you think is going to happen in the Extreme Rules match, which is a possibility. We could see her get very aggressive and make a heel turn. But what do you think about that, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, I think Liv is going to turn heel. And I think this has been like either just a lot of luck or brilliant writing, because, Liv, like when she started getting booed on that one particular SmackDown, I found it to be almost puzzling at first. And then you started seeing them lean into it a little bit more with, like you said, being arrogant in the skybox. And, even this week, man, like it was kind of very unbabyface-ish to do what she did. You know,
Yeah.
it didn't come across like something that someone who has a lot of, honor and integrity would do. Like, I'm going to, I can't control myself. I'm going to hit you with weapons, and then I'm going to take out a table and I'm going to smash you through a post match. It was almost like what the Usos did to RK Bro post match in a lighter way, but where they smashed them through the table and they just finished them and they were like laying there dead. So
you expect the babyface to escape the kendo stick situation, hit or finish, win the match, and get out of there and live to fight another day. No pun intended.
And I think that the only way that they're going to allow Liv to win this match is if she's going to have to use a weapon on Ronda, because it's not believable that she would win any other way. So if she is going to retain, it's going to be by the use of some incredibly violent weapon or weaponry that's going to just be so vicious that it's going to just turn her heel. And everyone's going to be booing, because they have not turned Ronda heel, which is interesting to me. I think if you are going to keep Morgan as a babyface, you would see that evil side come out in Ronda over the last few weeks. And we have not seen that. We've seen the tough side of Ronda, which is who she is, but we haven't seen the bad side of Ronda doing heelish things. So I just think the only way Liv is winning this match is by using a vicious weapon and literally knocking Ronda unconscious and pinning her type of thing, or something along those lines. Or we could see a title change, but I think Liv is going heel. I really do. And I think they kind of just ran into this, or it was just brilliant writing, knowing how the fans would react. Either one of those.
What I'm thinking, and I mean, I think they're smarter than this. If they wanted her to be heel, this is how you would do it. If they wanted her to be babyface, I mean, they would have never done that finish where she tapped and she had the pin. Or the way you get out of that is when she shows up on the next show, she says, you know what? In the heat of battle, I thought I tapped after. I saw the replay. I'm not a champ. I don't deserve this. Throw it up on a ladder. I got you at Extreme Rules, and we'll see who's the champ. Then no one would be booing her. So they could, if we just thought of it, they could have thought of it. So there's a reason they didn't. So maybe she wins. Maybe she gets someone that helps her, like a bodyguard, some bigger wrestler that's heel, and then she stays champ, or Ronda just wins the belt.
Yeah. I think that, I wonder if they were like, listen, we can't have her beat Ronda clean. We have to protect Ronda. And so we'll have her tapping out as the pinfall occurs. This happened years ago with Undertaker and Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle had the ankle lock in, and I don't remember what happened, but they actually had to reshoot it. It was a tape SmackDown, and they didn't get the camera angle right, and they had to reshoot it like in a corner of an arena with a bunch of workers as fake fans and get the finish.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, if you look that up with Kurt Angle and Undertaker, but I don't know if they were trying to protect Ronda and just overlooked what it could do to Liv, and then Liv's promo ability when she's out there with Kayla Braxton. She just was because Triple H is allowing people to be more free with their promos. They're not as scripted. They might have bullet points to hit, but they're not reading off of cue cards out there like they more likely were doing with Vince. Vince is more controlling that way. So maybe Liv goes out there and she's, saying what she needs to say, but ends up saying it and, just saying the wrong thing, and then gets the wrong reaction from the fans. And they're like, oh shit, like it could have been like that. You never know. But it also could have been planned. Like you guys are saying, they had it all planned out, because it's just not a babyface thing to do. But I think at the end of the day, that if she is going to win this match, I mean, it's an Extreme Rules match, so there's going to be weapons involved by both women. If she's going to win this match, she's going to have to be brutal to Ronda Rousey to win it, because they're going to want to continue to protect Ronda Rousey. And Liv Morgan's, she said it herself, she's the only person to beat her twice. And if she wins this one, she's the only person to beat her 3 times. And that really, they have to be careful not to define down Ronda Rousey, especially, with other things that they probably want to do with her down the line, like, have a match with her and Becky Lynch at WrestleMania or something like that. And that's why I kind of think this is where Liv Morgan's going to lose the title belt. And I can see I can see if she does win, her doing a post-match, like complete beatdown of Ronda Rousey, which shows her turning heel. But the one thing that's just stuck in my mind that I can't get out of my mind is for two things. Number one, and it kind of, they work against each other, because I've seen Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler wrestle as a tag team at house shows a lot. They've been wrestling as a tag team at house shows a ton. We've seen them run into each other backstage and say, whenever you're ready to break some bones together, let me know. And so we've seen a tease of them doing, tagging together or joining forces in some way on television as well. We know they've been doing that at house shows. That would require Ronda Rousey to turn heel and be a heel with Shayna Baszler and a tag team. But that would also require Ronda Rousey not to be holding the SmackDown Women's Championship. So it's like, I can't see Liv winning this match. I can see her winning if she turns heel, but I can also, if she turns heel, why would she turn heel and then Rousey turn heel as well and join Shayna Baszler? It's just a big mess of, things that are probably red herrings, but I just don't know which one it is.
Or maybe Baszler, joins her and they beat that damage control and they become both good. I mean, or just kind of like fighters that you respect good, not like so lovable, but yeah, anything could happen with that. It's all up in the air, man. It's all up in the air.
What I was going to say, just because I was going to forget, you brought up Kurt Angle, Undertaker, just as a throwback, and I just had to look to make sure I got the year right. If you ever want to go back, 2006, I think it's No Way Out, Kurt Angle, Undertaker, one of the greatest matches you'll ever see. I mean, obviously just on paper, it's great, but it was an amazing pay-per-view match. And then what are your guys' thoughts on Lacey Evans? I think she's great, and I know they pivoted on, she's coming in as a super baby face. Now she's a heel, and she does it great. I mean, I'm hoping there's more in the plans for her.
I agree. I was a big fan too, and I know me and Matt, we were talking about her winning Money in the Bank. We thought she was a dark horse.
Yeah, I've heard so many people speak negatively of her, and she doesn't do anything for them. I think that she has, pretty good skills. I think that she can play the heel or the babyface role well. I think she's doing well in the heel role. I think it was ridiculous how they had her do all those vignettes or whatever it was leading up to her coming in. They had the ring, and I knew she was going to come as a heel, but she did all that stuff with making us care about her history and all that stuff. And then she comes out and just basically says, screw you to the fans. I just think she's underutilized, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
I can see her as a champ. I mean, listen, she comes in with all of those babyface promos, and there's everything. I mean, I think in her life, she's got a family. She was a Marine. I mean, what's not to like and admire about her? But then if the crowd gives her a lukewarm response, she's doing like a Sergeant Slaughter. I'm better than you. I do more before 9 a.m. than you've done all week. Like that whole thing, she's doing the push-ups in the ring. How she should not be in the mid card forever. I think there's a title in her future, and they should build big programs around her.
I agree. I like her a lot.
Yeah, they need to sort of recalibrate that division and get things realigned, because she was off TV for like 3 months, and then she comes into this match and really beats the hell out of Liv Morgan. And until she started, playing with the kendo stick and teasing her with it, and then Liv Morgan took advantage of that, she looked very good in the match. And then, of course, they basically used her as fodder for Liv Morgan to show off her ability to be extreme. But we're late for a break here, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
The Beyond the Mat Podcast. We'll be right back. for the Beyond the Mat podcast.
Alrighty, so we're back on Beyond the Mat. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Beyond Mat WWE and on all podcast platforms, including YouTube, and you can find us on Twitter and other social media platforms as well. So, got done talking about Liv Morgan and a little bit of Lacey Evans. We'll move on here to briefly discuss the New Day, Maximum Male Models. New Day defeats them, and we see Max Dupree get pretty angry after the win. Now, a couple weeks ago, he said something about you got to get through the day before you get to the night. And then when they're in Sacramento or San Diego, wherever the hell they were. Anaheim. He says,
we're a stone's throw away from LA or something.
Exactly. And I remember I said this to Wade Keller, and he was like, whoa, it's not unusual for an athlete or a wrestler to mention that they're close to Los Angeles. And I'm like, come on, man.
His name is LA Knight. Yeah, exactly.
Like, do you not know? Like, so I think we're going to see LA Knight here returning. What do you think's happening here with Max Dupree?
Yeah. I think him taking off the jacket and, getting all frustrated and leaving is part of that return. And I do think you'll see, him come out and say, before I was ever Max Dupree and I joined this stupid group of losers, I was LA Knight, and let me talk to you. I don't know, something like that. I think that's an easy way for him to get his old character back. And I think it's not like he's so established in this role where it matters. I got to be honest, though, man, I love this Maximum Male Models thing, and I wish that they were winning, and I think it's funny as hell. I love it, and I wish that they were I wish that they were positioned in the way that Hit Row is right now, because I don't like Hit Row, and I would have liked to have seen them be that team that's, they're kind of winning, they're kind of a threat, at any week, they're kind of, they're the team that beats Los Lotharios, they're the team that beats whoever. I just think they got a great act, man. So I do think LA Knight's leaving it, but maybe I'm in the vast minority here, but I freaking love this act. I think they're hilarious.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in the multiverse here. I didn't have a lot of experience with LA Knight. I knew him as Eli Drake when he was in Impact, and I remember watching him there. And I mean, the first thing I thought of, I'm like, wow, this guy carries himself like Austin. He sounds like Steve Austin on the mic, and he also sounds like The Rock. It's like they had a baby. This is the guy. And I was always wondering why Impact never went with him and gave him that prominent position that I think he needed. And also, I think it might have been a time in Impact's history where they were not as hot as they once were. So they might have been waiting, and then he's not there. So then when he came in as LA Knight, I didn't follow a lot of the NXT because there was a period with NXT, at least for me personally, when there was like a pattern of you get into somebody, but instead of them jumping to the main roster as the character they were, they started. I mean, Karrion Kross is an example, and I'm sure there are plenty. So that's when it became really like, all right, this is developmental. There's only so many hours a week I can devote. All right. But he's a guy that, this is a franchise player, I'm thinking. I agree. I can't wait.
I agree. I love him.
Let's go.
Love him.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with what Brad was saying about Maximum Male. I wish they were positioned better too. I wish they weren't just someone who's out there for Braun Strowman to destroy and for Hit Row to throw out of the ring and then beat clean, basically without much of a fight in a match. Mansoor. But when he was Mansoor, we all appreciate Gunther a lot, I think, right? And he just had a 5-star match with Sheamus at Clash of the Castle. Dave Meltzer gave it 5 stars. First WWE match in a long time to get 5 stars from Dave Meltzer. And that was an outstanding match. It came down to the end. I'm not going to break it all down, but it was just the storytelling there where it just got to the point where Sheamus was so beat down that when he went for his Aluva kick, he just collapsed, and the psychology of Gunther trying to hit his power bomb, but Amos was attacking his arm. Then he eventually got the power bomb and finished him off. But anyway, we all appreciate Gunther. Mansoor fought Gunther at the house show I was speaking of that I saw Roman Reigns at his last house show. And he fought Gunther for about 25 minutes. And he looked outstanding. Like, he was great in the ring. He's a really good in-ring talent. And to waste him in a gimmick like this, where not that anything's wrong with the gimmick. I mean, people can say what they want about the gimmick, but where they're just coming out and making fashion statements and getting beat up by Braun Strowman or beat up by Hit Row. And you know, Hit Row might be for some people. I'm not a fan of it either. And I just wish that Maximum Male Models weren't just a comedy thing that's not going anywhere at all. Now, as far as LA Knight, I do see LA Knight coming back. I don't know what how they're gonna write that as far as him leaving the group and all that, but you know, I definitely think that he has all those tools that you were saying with the speaking ability, and you know, he's got really good in-ring ability. He would be great in a tag team with somebody. He's not an overly imposing physical guy, so I don't know how high up on the card he would go, but I certainly would rather see him in the ring than wearing a suit as a manager. So that's sort of my take on that. But moving on from LA Knight, we had, speaking of Braun Strowman and Otis. Now, I'll couple this with the fact that we had Omos in a 1-minute squash on Raw. Now, bring Braun Strowman back. He has this match with Otis that they did the tail of the tape thing to sort of break down each guy. Thought that was kind of cool. He ends up beating Otis in this match. Otis did the world's strongest slam and did a Vader bomb, and neither of those things finished off Braun Strowman. And Braun Strowman wins this match, and you know, so he's being portrayed as a monster. We got Omos being portrayed as a monster as well. Strowman's obviously more talented than Omos, but is there, and eventually maybe you think that they're going to, or working towards having Omos and Braun Strowman face each other in some sort of big marquee match? Because is there room for two monsters like this where sort of all they do is just destroy everything in sight? Frank?
Yeah. I mean, I think for sure that's in the future. You've got this, like, you know, Andre Big John Studd. It's an attraction. This is an attraction battle. I think that's where they're headed. I just don't know, you know, Omos, I haven't seen enough to know how good his in-ring would be against Braun, you know, what that would look like. It's one thing to do a squash. It's another thing to have a full-blown match. So, but again, you're not looking for the 5-star match there. This is an attraction. So, you know, it's definitely where it's headed. But, you know, as far as who's going to be the giant of WWE moving after that, I mean, I think it's Braun, right? I mean,
I would think so, because Omos is, I mean, he can't talk and he can't wrestle. Now, MVP is very funny and very entertaining as his manager, but I think MVP's that way as anybody's manager. And it's honestly a waste of MVP to have him managing Omos, even though they need him to have a mouthpiece. But like, so I say Mansoor, you know, showed himself very well at the house show against Gunther back. And this is when he was doing the Maximum Male Models thing on like Saturday main event, you know, on the dark tapings and things like that. And he still was wrestling as Mansoor, like on TV or, you know, at this house show. And by the same token, I've seen Omos at the house shows, and he's just the same as you see on TV. Can do very little but roar and, you know, throw people into the corner. You know, the big tree choke slam. He doesn't have, I think one of the things about Omos is that he doesn't have like a signature move that just finishes people. like a big, I mean, I know he does the double choke slam, the tree slam, but I don't picture that. That just seems like something he's doing because that's kind of all he can do. He doesn't have a signature move a signature finishing move that when you see him hit that on somebody, you know they're done. He just kind of beats somebody down because he's bigger than him. And I don't know. I don't see it with Omos. I think Strowman, I'm not the biggest fan of him for a lot of different reasons, but I also think that, coming back in his return, he looks like he's in a lot better shape than he was before. And I think he's more talented than Omos. So if they were to eventually have battle these two giants, I think Strowman would win this one. And to me, it should be win or go home match, to be a loser leaves town type of match. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I think Braun Strowman Omos is like a great future matchup. I think, that Battle of Giants is something we could see on a pay-per-view. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. I agree.
And then Omos, I mean, I thought I had heard at one point he was let go and then he was still there. So, I mean, if we play it out that he's going to stay with WWE after they build up to that attraction, what's his future? I mean, I think they had him right at the beginning where he was like with AJ. This is the heavy. You're the heavy. And then, like Matt was saying, give him a move. I mean, I don't know, like going back to the ECW days, like who was the guy's name? Was it 911? He didn't wrestle, but he came out and he choke slammed everyone. Like that's what you got to do for a guy like Omos.
He needs to learn just one wrestling move. What I mean?
He joins the Alpha Academy and they have a whole program where they're trying to teach him how to wrestle. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. They could teach him how to speak English too, but, moving on from the Battle of the Giants and the Monsters or whatever they want to call them. We also had Drew McIntyre come out, he's holding a strap in his hand. And he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to challenge Karrion Kross to a strap match. And it's like, no shit, Sherlock. You had a strap in your hand. We knew what you were trying to do. So
did you notice it barely fit around Karrion Kross's hand, though? He had to hold it to keep it on. I don't think they measured that before, but that's okay.
Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. And then Kross attacks him from behind. McIntyre sees it coming. He gets better Kross at first. Kross is in the corner. Scarlett goes to try to stop everything, gets in the middle of everything, shoots a fireball at Drew's face. It doesn't hit him, so he doesn't sell it, and he continues to beat up Kross. I wonder what happened. I wonder if it was supposed to hit him, and then it was supposed to take him down, or if it missed, and he was like, well, I can't sell that. We have to improvise. And then he just keeps beating him down. He's like, give me a low blow. And then he gets a low blow, and he gets choked out by Kross. I think the fact that Kross keeps getting the better of him at the end of all these segments is aiming towards McIntyre beating him in this strap match at Extreme Rules. Not the biggest Kross fan here. The presentation of himself as a character is nice, but I just don't think he has much to offer in the ring. I think that the screen turning black and white whenever he does something in the ring is a little ridiculous. And I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of his. But what do you guys think of Drew and Karrion Kross here, particularly with the Extreme Rules match coming up, the strap match?
Well, just one behind the scenes note on this is that Drew had terrible food poisoning that he got before this segment. And I don't know if he got it in catering or where he got it, but terrible food poisoning, and he really powered through that. So I give him a ton of credit, man, because we all know what it's like to feel that way and to be able to pull off that segment in the way that he did, in the promo in the way that he did. I thought, I think he's just the consummate professional, and he's so great. And but yeah, I'm not the biggest Kross fan. He's kind of growing on me a little bit. Like it's sort of starting to like feel a little bit more authentic to me, but I'm not like in love with the act, and it's a little creepy for my taste personally. But I guess we haven't seen anything yet, because we're going to probably get a Bray Wyatt come back with a lot more creepy stuff than this. But still, yeah, I'd love to hear Frank's thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. So It's funny, Matt, what you had said. A good friend of mine, the same thing, that the fireball didn't hit. I didn't notice anything about that other than, all right, it didn't hit him. He sort of shook his head like, okay, temporarily, like a flashbang grenade. And then she gave him the low blow and whatever. I didn't even think about it until my friend brought it up that didn't go as planned. And he sort of mentioned, I don't know if you've ever seen it, the Hogan Warrior WCW match where there was problems trying to get that flash paper. It was like the same thing, but that Drew was professional enough and Scarlett was, that they improvised. So that's amazing. I didn't even know. I mean, you could watch all these years and you don't even catch it, but you caught it. I thought it was great. I love anything that Drew does just because of his, what are the best things about wrestling, right? When it's, there's some reality behind it. So his whole journey of you're the chosen one really didn't make it in his first gimmick, leaves, and then he grows up and then he comes back after proving himself on the indies. I mean, this is a guy people can cheer for. And I mean, this is right where he needs to be. He's not going to always be in the title picture. I think it's great, but I guess the part, and I think it was during this was 923, and this segment was 923. This was all the white. I mean, I'm here on my phone snapping QR codes, which I don't even know how to do that. And I'm like, oh, let me see this. I mean, I'm not a kid. I'm not one of the Logan Paul YouTubers that know how to do this. And I'm seeing these stupid videos. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a Pac-Man game with the white rabbit. It jumps at this. And at that 923 mark, I think that's Karrion Kross choked him out and said, let it go. So this is all got to be leading to whatever Bray's gimmick is. And I'm all for the creepy, if they do it right. I do not want to see anything like what The Fiend was, pulling out giant hammers when he faces Seth Rollins. It didn't make sense. It was too Looney Tunes. Do this creepy, because this Bray Wyatt, this is your Undertaker, man. This is the way it's done. I mean, the guy who did the creature mask, I think, is like a Hollywood prop master. That thing is creepy as hell. I mean, it scares me. I won't watch pay-per-views downstairs. Got to watch him upstairs, if he's on it. But bottom line, you've got it. It's got to be him, and they've got to get it right this time. And I think, and this is just, and it's not to get into the tribalism, AEW, WWE. I love all wrestling, but there was a time, I guess, when Vince is running this. What was the allure of an AEW? The allure of AEW was, guys, these guys are getting over in WWE, and then they get punished because that's not the shiny toy that they wanted to play with. So they go to AEW. I think everyone wanted to see Bray go there. I did, but not with Triple H in charge. Nobody will do a guy like Bray Wyatt as good as WWE. When they do it right, they do it better than anyone. That is a gimmick and storyline that is made for WWE. They will pull it off like a Disney, Marvel. This is their thing, and they can't fumble this. This is make or break.
They got to be careful with it. I don't want it to be too fiendish either. And I agree with you that it's sort of like your Undertaker-esque thing of this generation or of this era, but at the same time, it can't be the same as the Undertaker. Like, he can't be teleporting and getting the lights turning out in the middle of stuff and things like that. In my opinion, he can't be summoning lightning but they can do some pretty cool creative things. And we all know Bray Wyatt's a pretty creative guy. And I think, but like you said, WWE has the resources and the production quality to do some pretty cool stuff with Bray Wyatt whenever they do come back with him, which may be at Extreme Rules. I'm not sure. But I agree with you that this is like I don't want to see like a lot of paranormal crazy things happening with it, but I do want to see like the creative side of it. There's a fine line between it being too hokey and unbelievable and it just being like for example, when the Judgment Day was the lights would just go out in the middle of a Damian Priest match and then he just disappear and AJ Styles would be like, what the hell just happened? And like, that was a little ridiculous. So that's the kind of things that I hope that Bray Wyatt's not doing when he comes back. But I do hope that there is some sort of interesting things and creative things like you were mentioning, Frank. But who knows? I guess we'll see. Um, we're gonna take a break real quick, and then we'll get into the main event of SmackDown and move on to Raw.
The Beyond the Mat podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Beyond the Mat podcast.
Alrighty, Beyond the Mat podcast back with Frank and Brad. Tonight we are going to briefly touch on the main event of SmackDown, which was the Brawling Brutes taking on the Usos for the Undisputed Tag Championships. Usos end up winning this one with the 1D after some interference by Imperium. Gunther came down and took out, who did he take out? Ridge Holland. Or no, he took out Sheamus with the big boot after Sheamus was trying to stop Sami Zayn, who had the chair. And then we're going to see Sheamus and Gunther fight again for the IC title on SmackDown for the season premiere in a couple weeks, which will be a great match. Probably not as great as the Clash of the Castle match, but smart by WWE to put that on their season premiere to draw the ratings after that being a 5-star match. What did you guys think of this main event match?
You know, I just love the fact that Butch and Ridge Holland have gained, partially through Sheamus's kind of blowing up all of a sudden and becoming so popular. They've gotten to the point of main eventing, you know, a SmackDown and it feeling completely right. And I loved that, you know. I really was very impressed with the match. There was points where I actually thought Ridge Holland and Butch were going to win. I think Butch has become like a real key player. And a lot of people were saying, oh, it's Butch. It's really Pete Dunne. It's not Butch. I just love what they're doing with this, man. And I've really taken to Butch, and I don't mind the name. And I think it's just, it's gone in a great direction. I really do.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, listen, I love the fact that you're getting a main event with tag teams, with a tag team division that now matters. You know, not to get too, well, I mean, we are inside baseball, right? We're talking all this stuff. So the bottom line is, I think the prior thinking under Vince McMahon was that, well, he didn't like tag team wrestling, and some of it had a financial basis. Like, why am I paying 4 guys all this money? There was a reason why it was never focused on. And again, it's probably another reason why people were attracted to AEW. Hey, we're going to do tag team wrestling, and they do it very well. But there's a focus again. And I think the Brawling Brutes, I mean, this is great. Sheamus, the crowd, I think always was there for Sheamus. It's just how you book him. I mean, and with this feud with Gunther, everyone's seeing what a great wrestler he is. And I always felt, I mean, I know I saw Pete Dunne, I don't think it was a cruiserweight tournament, but it was whenever he fought Tyler Bate, I think it was. It was a European championship. They had this amazing match years ago. And then he comes over and, you know, you heard all the same stuff. Oh, God, they changed his name. They this. I'm like, well, you know what? That gimmick wasn't really so bad. I could see Vince looking at this guy being like, you look like a brawler. You're a brawling brute, and we're going to call you Butch. And you know what? He still wrestles the same. He's great. The whole thing, I think it's great. I mean, you know, it was just a great match, and it's a great team with some longevity, and you know, I think they're in the right direction. The other thing that, you know, I just wanted to mention was that, you know, because I'm looking at the results here and I see on the side, we can't talk about every segment, but you think about a tag team division, they have this awesome little, you know, cut scene with Sami Zayn and Solo Sikoa against, was it Mad?
Oh yeah, that was great.
And Ricochet. But not only was the segment great, you've got a tag team match between these guys next week, and you're actually excited about it, where maybe in the past you would just have a tag team match that didn't mean anything. Like, this means something. They've got a story. You're invested. You could like both sides, but seeing Sami like, oh, these are my new buddies. This is like, you're best friends with the bully, right? And you're shooting your mouth off. Like this is hilarious.
Completely. It completely had that vibe of friends with the bully. And I loved how Sami Zayn was kind of bullying the chef guy or the catering guy. Yeah, he's like, I told you a vegan meal. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? And then, Ricochet's like, oh, you're a big jerk. You're even more insufferable than ever. What's going on with you, man? And then Solo just comes and just beats him up, who is, the bully, the enforcer. And it was just great, man. I agree. I forgot about that segment, but that was tremendous.
Yeah. Well, and I love that, I don't know how it's all going to play out, and there's so many different branches it could take, but it's like Sami Zayn legitimately sacrificed himself for all members of the bloodline. So Solo Sikoa is the one that's like, I see what this guy's doing and he's loyal to him. I wonder if in the future that is the division where Solo Sikoa becomes more of a face, like because Jay is different than Jimmy in the feelings for Sammy. Like it's just interesting to watch, and that they're going to finish it out.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
It's interesting that Solo Sikoa, Drew McIntyre had Roman Reigns beat at Clash of the Castle, but for Solo Sikoa pulling him out of the ring. And then in the opening segment, he has Solo Sikoa acknowledge him. If I'm Solo Sikoa, I'm saying, listen, you wouldn't even be holding those title belts if it wasn't for me. If it wasn't for the higher up members of the Bloodline family calling on me to go to Clash of the Castle in Cardiff, Wales. But the other thing about that backstage segment with the brawl where Sikoa beat up Moss and Ricochet, it was funny because he threw them against that garage door a couple times. And then there was a time where Ricochet just threw himself into the garage door. If you watched it back, it was kind of hard to tell at first glance. But yeah, I do like the way that we're getting, a lot more tag teams featured, a lot more factions. It's, Vince didn't have this going on. Triple H, it's such a better way to have more people get on TV, more people featured. Tag team match, you get 4 guys get to show up versus having a 3-minute singles match, where one guy, might go over a little bit and then lose it with the roll up to protect it. It's just, and then a rematch the next week because Vince forgot that he booked it last week. The way that things are being done now with so many different tag teams and so many different factions, and you had the Imperium run in on the main event, so many people get television time, and you just get to see so many more guys and so much more action. It makes it so much more unpredictable and so much more interesting. And it sets up so many more things for you to look forward to for the next week.
Listen, I mean, would you ever think before this, it's like Madcap Moss. He was just the sidekick to Baron Corbin. This guy legitimately is a guy you root for, and you're interested in seeing him in a tag team. Like, it's just a much different view. And I know the old way of thinking, I mean, I'm sure it's still there. If you're not there to be the champ, why are you in the business? But not everyone can be the champ. And if you're in the mid card, but you're doing good story, everyone has a role to play, but is the role fulfilling? And you're seeing now, you could be fulfilled in all the fans and the wrestler. It's all positive stuff. It's not like you were just saying, book it, roll up, and then book it the next week because maybe either we forgot how we booked it or the fans don't remember. Fans don't remember necessarily every win or loss, but the fan does notice if the story's not going anywhere. That's an issue.
Yeah, and to your point, Frank, it's like the Brawling Brutes. They're not really in the championship picture, but, they're getting spotlight at times. Edge, he's not in the championship picture, but he's getting main event matches on Raw, and he's getting big pay-per-view matches.
Dominic
Riddle's
got his main event match against Edge. Dominic Mysterio.
What? Dominic, exactly. So you could be very important and still in the quote-unquote mid-card or not in the title picture. So I agree with what Frank's saying right there.
Well, speaking of Raw and speaking of factions, we had Damage Control open up Raw. Now, I have not been I think damage ever since this return of Dakota Kai and Io Sky and Bayley at SummerSlam happened. It was that I was excited to see that come together, and then ever since then, it's just slowly but surely gone downhill for me. I feel like Bayley's going through the motions with her heel character here. I'm not a huge fan of Kai or Sky. I think that their in-ring ability leaves a little bit of something to be desired. The match between Belair and Io Sky that kicked off Raw, I thought was lackluster, and that's something that I don't expect out of Belair. Belair is a top flight women's wrestler, and she usually has a good match with that. I mean, she had good matches with Carmella, who I didn't even think that was possible. And also on SmackDown we had Raquel Rodriguez and Dakota in a match. And one of the things I think about Io Sky and Dakota Kai, and the reason why in my opinion, why their matches aren't that great, is because their experience was NXT, and while NXT is exciting and they got good wrestling matches on there, a lot of the people don't sell as well. And I just feel like when I saw in this Belair Sky match, Belair do like sort of a monkey throw out of the corner to Io Sky, and she kind of just collapsed. She didn't sell it like she was thrown out of the corner by somebody that was so much bigger and stronger than her. And I wonder if it's their selling abilities that's making their matches look kind of sloppy and not as good. But to me, Damage Control is not doing it for me. Now, this segment eventually led to Belair and Bayley having the ladder match at Extreme Rules for the Raw Women's Championship. So just, how do you guys feel about Damage Control, and how do you guys feel about the Belair and Bayley ladder match coming up?
I just got to say this, like, my issue with Damage Control is like they have no clear motivation as like to be a faction. Like, are they just heels because they follow Bayley and just like cheat basically? Like we don't know anything about them. We don't know why they're together. We don't know how they met. We don't know what their goals are. We don't really know how anything aligns with them. And we don't really even know their personalities as a group. It just is missing that element of why should I care about you and why should I care about them? And, I think Io's better than Dakota, and I think Bayley's better than both of them. But I agree with you, Matt. There's something to be desired in the ring. Io is more than fine. Dakota, I don't really know too much, but they're capable, but it just doesn't click. There's no reason to like them or hate them or care about them. And that's what I think it is. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I think Bianca Belair is just, I certainly hope she's not dropping the title. I like her as champ. She's at the top, and she deserves to be at the top. Mm-hmm. Bayley, I mean, I love Bayley because, I mean, who would have ever thought she'd be heel, and she's so good at it. But I see what you guys are saying. I mean, there's definitely, what is the reason that these two hooked up with her? So there's a story to be told there that they could probably explore, and maybe see Bayley not treat them so nice. Like make Bayley way more of a heel and give them something to work with. I mean, I definitely, could see that, sort of the way Roman was with the Usos.
Exactly.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, and this is just food for thought. We don't have to discuss it because we'd open up a whole bag of worms. But I wonder how much different all of this would be if Becky Lynch never got hurt. If it would be Alexa Bliss and Asuka out there, or what Becky Lynch would be, what her role in all this would be. And I'm interested to see what her role in all this will be when she comes back, and if she obviously turned face there. And I don't know if you guys know this, but in the original plans that Vince McMahon had for SummerSlam, Becky Lynch was going to remain heel. She wasn't going to turn babyface at the end of that match. And that was something that Triple H made happen. And I think that was the right call. I think she needed to turn baby. Becky Lynch is not what, she did what she needed to do as a heel. She helped build a lot of the people on the roster, like a Liv Morgan, even like a Doudrop, who we haven't seen in a little while, because I think she's getting a character makeover. And obviously she helped build Bianca Belair to what she is in a pretty long-term story from last SummerSlam to this SummerSlam. But I wonder what Becky Lynch's role in that would be. Now, next up on Raw, we had Mysterio and Seth Rollins. Rollins comes out. He cuts a promo about how he's going to beat Riddle in the Fight Pit match at Extreme Rules. That's a match that I'm really looking forward to seeing in person. I wonder if that's going to main event the event, because the Fight Pit's a pretty difficult structure to set up. And, they're going to have to take a lot of time to set it up and a lot of time to take it down. And if it's in the middle of the show, that's a lot of dead time to kill on the live pay-per-view. But regardless, we have this match, and with the distraction of Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley, Seth gets distracted, or Seth takes advantage of this distraction, and he ends up hitting a curb stomp, but doesn't go for the pin. He puts on a Peruvian necktie, and Mysterio passes out. So this basically demonstrates that that Seth Rollins has a submission move that he can execute on Riddle in the Fight Pit match. So what do you guys think of this match, and what do you think of Rollins and Riddle in the Fight Pit?
Yeah, I mean, I like what they're doing with Riddle, going back a little bit, since before this Raw, when they did their interview, and then they made it as if they weren't on air anymore, and then Rollins starts talking about, hey, you still there, and then brings up whatever real life situation he may or may not have with his family, and you see this guy that is medicated and chill all the time, right? And then he gets crazed. I think that should be a character they start to build with him, that, hey, this is the cool guy. He's like, I forget the character's name on the 70s show, Ashton Kutcher's character, whatever the name was, like,
Kelso.
I am. I'm this funny, easygoing guy. But if you push the wrong buttons, bam, I'm like the Viper. I'm buddies with Randy Orton. And I like where they're going with this. I mean, I don't think it matters who wins or loses this, although Riddle should probably win this, right? It's in his match, right? I'm an MMA guy. I shouldn't lose this. That's it. So, and I like the interaction that he had with Bobby Lashley. I thought that was pretty cool. Where Bobby says, don't interfere in my match anymore, and it's sort of setting up an MMA versus pro wrestler type of thing. I think everything's cool about it. And, you see a match where you see Mysterio and Seth Rollins. That's just a great match to watch. But they have all this other stuff going on at the same time. You got Seth, you got Riddle, you've got everything that Ray's got on his mind with Judgment Day and his son. And then you've got the history between them. It's just, this is not just two guys thrown together. This is a fun match with story elements all around it. I loved it.
What about you, Brad?
No, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the one thing I don't like, and I do think Riddle will win the match because of what you just mentioned, Frank, but I don't like the idea of Seth losing another feud. Even though he won the first match, it's going to feel like ultimately he lost if this is the final step in it, which I believe it is. He just lost to Cody. You have people going buck wild for him, singing his song everywhere he goes, every arena. It doesn't stop. It's throughout the match. It's before the match. It's after the match. I just don't like the idea of Seth losing another feud here, but hey, I think this match is going to be incredible, and I think it's going to be a very unique setting, Matt, like you said, in the Fight Pit, which is just, it's tough to set up. It's unique. It's just going to be really cool.
Well, the one thing I'll say to counter your point about Seth losing the feud, what you have to realize about, there are no standings. It's the wins and losses don't actually matter. He's at the top of the card. He's such a great wrestler and such a great character that he's going to remain at the top of the card, regardless if he wins or loses to really anybody, unless he just goes on a losing streak to to the lowest people on the roster for the longest time. And Riddle needs the leg up and needs to be defined up more. I don't see him losing to Riddle as defining himself or as defining Seth down at all. Whereas if Riddle lost, that would be another loss for Riddle, and that would, even further keep him out of the top of the card picture. And you want Riddle as a babyface to move up further in the card and further cement himself as a top star, because that's what you want to do. While Seth has already established himself as a superstar, and he's not going anywhere. He's going to continue to be a star. And, that's just one of the selfless things that, top guys, especially top heel guys, have to do. They have to, put other people over to just continue things on. I think it was the right move to have him win the Clash of the Castle match because he had lost so many consecutive pay-per-view matches. But I think it's the right thing for Riddle to win this match, and then they move on, and then Seth can beat somebody else at, the next pay-per-view and get some wins. I do agree with you that he does seem to lose a lot, and, he deserves to be in some title picture at some point. And, the whole point of Riddle interfering in his match in the Lashley match that Lashley was talking about was because, Seth beat him at Clash of the Castle. Seth stomped him over and over and over and over again. Seth seemed to have the upper hand in the Riddle feud, like nonstop. It didn't seem like Riddle was getting one over on Seth at all, but for interfering or distracting in that match and costing him the U.S. title, which adds a little bit heat behind Riddle in that feud. I do think Riddle will probably win, but I think it's okay for Seth to lose. I think there's certain guys that are just bulletproof that way, where they're just so established and they're so good at what they do that winning and losing just doesn't affect them. And there are certain guys that, let's say that when he faced the Street Profits in those singles matches, had they both beaten him, and then both members of Alpha Academy beat him, and then Johnny Gargano beats him, then that's not good. Seth can't be losing those kinds of matches. But if it's in an effort to elevate an up-and-coming star like Riddle, I think it's the right thing to do. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
The Beyond the Mat Podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Beyond the Mat Podcast.
All right, and we're back. So do you guys have anything else on Riddle and Seth?
Yeah, one thing just on Rollins, and it just what really impresses me is, you hear people talk about the guys, back in the golden era, and it's larger than life personalities, and have they made new stars and whatnot. This character that Rollins is playing, I mean, this is not the original plan for him. I think he was a babyface at some point, and maybe I think he was being like a company guy. I don't even know if that was standing up when there was, AEW coming up, and he's like, hey, I love WWE. Whatever it was, people started to turn on him a little bit, and then he got into this character. This character, this over-the-top delusional, he's like the Riddler or something, right? That's why I think, the losses, he's somewhat bulletproof, but obviously he can't just lose to everyone unless they make that part of a story. But I just think it goes to show this is a larger-than-life character. What he wears, how he talks, just doesn't matter. And him losing in Riddle's match sort of protects him. But it's just he's one of these guys, because I think that just stands out. And the best thing that makes a wrestling roster great is not everyone looking and acting the same. You take a guy like a Kevin Owens, like a prize fighter. You take a guy like a Seth Rollins, then there's, bigger guys like a Roman. Everyone looks different, acts different, and this is a character. So anyone that says they're not creating new characters since like the Cena era, that's baloney. This guy is it. He reminds me of Macho Man Randy Savage, who does an interview where they affect their voice in such a way. I'm not going to do an impression. We all know how they sound, right? Most other people, they don't have that voice. He does this ludicrous voice, and it's awesome. And that's why he's so over now. That's why they're singing his song. They love what he's doing. And eventually I think that the story and the play with him is he does start losing a lot and says, I got to get my head screwed on straight. And it leads up, whether it's this Rumble or the next Rumble, he starts doing well. He starts off as like a number one, and people will be loving him by the end of it. He's money.
Yeah, I think the road has to lead back on that to Roman Reigns, but we could save that for another day, you know. But I have to see that matchup again.
Yeah, that's definitely one that they're keeping in the back pocket for some time. They did it at the Rumble. That was interesting because they're real quick. They were both heels going into that one, and they needed to get somebody, get the crowd, to babyface react to somebody. So the way they did that for Seth in that particular match is they had him enter from the crowd to the Shield music, and they played it off as him really getting into Roman's head. So, and then that made the crowd get behind Rollins that night for the match. Now, obviously the crowd's behind him with the singing the song and all that stuff. And I think all that really plays into, more of why it's okay for Rollins to lose the feud to Riddle and put him over, because the crowd's so into him no matter what. And, and it's like you said, Frank, he's like a major superstar of this generation, and they do have new star. They do have big guy. People just think Roman Reigns is the only one. Well, Seth Rollins is right up there with him. He just doesn't have the title belt, and they're just building more people and having him go over. Cody's hurt right now, but Cody would be a major star too if he was around, and Orton was if he wasn't, recovering from back surgery. And they're trying to get Riddle to that place too. And so, so goes it. But moving on from that, we had, speaking of the prize fighter, Kevin Owens, we had him and Gargano versus the Alpha Academy. Very good tag match. It was nice. It was cool to see, Otis and Owens, and then Owens and Gable, and Gargano and Gable, who always look good wrestling together, and then Gargano and Otis. It was just nice to see these different matchups. And again, like we were saying earlier, I don't understand why Vince just hated the tag team wrestling so much. Get 4 guys out there, and one legitimate tag team, one sort of put together, but whatever. You get tag team, the Alpha Academy out there and looking good against 2 very good wrestlers. And even though they didn't go over in the match, they certainly looked impressive in it. And this one ended after, we had a distraction with Austin Theory in this match. And then Gargano hit his final beat DDT on Chad Gable, and they win the match. So what'd you guys think of this tag match? Fast-paced tag match. Let's do a fast-paced recap of it. Or analysis, I guess.
Yeah, I thought it was great. You're seeing, you're seeing Owens tag with Gargano, and it brings me back to when he sort of looked at Austin Theory and he said, guys like us, So Kevin Owens and Gargano. What does that mean? These are guys that maybe Vince didn't see a future in. One guy's smaller, one guy, he's not the different physiques or whatever. Meanwhile, they're like the heart and soul of what wrestling fans like. And seeing them against, the Alpha Academy, I mean, it was fun. It was great. And, and I think Alpha Academy is hilarious. That's my team.
Oh, I love them. And how funny was it seeing Gable and Otis come in with those huge American flags, waving them in Canada, and having the people hate them and saying, thank you. Yep. It was so funny, man. It was just so well done.
Yeah,
the thank you, the shoosh. He's just, he's Kurt Angle, but he's doing it well.
It's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and it's also like it's like sort of an unwritten rule that Canadian wrestling fans hate the American wrestlers, and Alpha Academy is a heel team, so they're going to come out with the American flag and get booed even more, and that helps Gargano and Owens get cheered even more. And Owens is just recently turned babyface. But I think what Owens and Gargano is doing is great. I thought this was a great match, and I don't know that I want to necessarily. I mean, I like the tag team of Owens and Gargano, but I don't think that's going to be a long-term thing. But this was a great match to have in the middle of Raw, and feature 4 guys, and
yeah, I agree. I don't think it's long term. The only thing I don't want to see is we don't need to see Kevin Owens turn on Gargano, because they do that too much. I want to see him stay a face for a while.
Yeah, I think he needs to stay face for a while and eventually get Sami Zayn on his side. Now, speaking of Sami Zayn, we had him in a match against AJ Styles. This match ended when Solo Sikoa got involved in hitting Aranagi Slam on AJ Styles on the apron and allowed Zayn to hit the haluva kick on him. And that got himself the win to help him, keep the Bloodline proud of him. They can't have him losing right away after he gets that t-shirt, or there's going to be problems with him making the Bloodline look bad. Then afterwards, Finn Balor and Judgment Day attacked AJ Styles, put his head in a chair. Finn Balor was about to stomp him, but said that he didn't do it because he was his friend. And, Balor's trying to get Styles to join Judgment Day. Styles is saying he doesn't want to. What do you guys really think about this Judgment Day stuff with Styles? And what do you guys think of the match between Styles and Zayn?
Yeah, I like how they've been going after Styles to join that group for a few weeks now, or maybe about a month now, actually. But it's been, it was kind of like how a little strange how Finn Balor showed the mercy of not doing the move when he had his neck in the chair, and kind of like holding off on doing that, thinking maybe there's still a hope of him joining at some point. I don't think the Judgment Day needs new members right now, but I do think it was just kind of a good way to tie the 2 segments together of the Sami Zayn match flowing directly into what really was essentially the main event for Raw.
Yeah, I mean, just AJ Styles, Sami Zayn, again, on paper, this is a great match. And the way they have all the other story elements flowing around it, you can't help but love how they put it together. And also, we didn't mention it before, but how brilliant is it, this honorary Uce shirt? I mean, they're doing everything with storylines, but I mean, I want to buy that shirt. How cool is that?
No doubt, a great shirt. Tremendous.
Come on. But
great.
When it leads into the whole Judgment Day thing, it's just got me thinking, like, I don't see AJ Styles ever joining Judgment Day. I like him staying as a face, but I just wonder, with all the stuff with Bray Wyatt possibly coming in, I mean, you haven't seen I think the last time you saw the Demon, did the Fiend fight? He fought Finn Balor, I think. Wasn't that? I think that was a match when the Fiend was still there. The
Demon fought Roman Reigns at Extreme Rules last year, and that was
the last time we saw him.
But did he ever fight? Okay, I thought, and maybe that was just fantasy booking in my head, but we have not seen the Demon for a while, and you're just wondering, is Judgment Day going to have some connection to this White Bunny faction? And is this going to lead to the Demon coming back, but as a face? I don't know if that's in the future for Finn, but it's fun, just along for the ride, not even try and figure it out.
Yeah, I could see Bray Wyatt teaming up with Edge and maybe some other people to go after Judgment Day. I could say there's so many scenarios that could happen, but yeah.
I mean, Demon did fight the Fiend in a steel cage a couple years ago.
That's probably what I'm saying. I thought they did that, but it just seems like they don't know what to do with the Demon character. They don't, and it's probably, the result of them never putting Finn in a prominent position for very long. This has probably been the most prominent position he's been in some time.
But yeah, since being the first Universal Champion, probably, definitely. I mean, he's certainly getting the most time right now. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, because didn't he? I thought he got injured almost right. He was probably going to have a nice run, and I think he unfortunately was like injured, right?
Yeah, he was injured like basically the day after, the day of he got that title. So.
Okay. And just really quickly transitioning into Judgment Day is much more palatable to me. I have no problem with them main eventing week after week. It seems like now on Raw. I find them much more interesting. I think Damian Priest taking a big leap ahead with this thing. I find Rhea Ripley's role to be interesting. I find Dominic's new role to be very interesting. I even find Finn Balor to have kind of come into his own a little bit more after feeling a little awkward at the start of this. So I have no problem. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I like what they're doing with the Judgment Day now. I find them compelling.
Yeah, I do.
Priest reminds me a little of Roman Reigns sometimes when he talks in that group. He has a presence. So I think this is working well for him.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're better than that. When they first started out and they would come out to, and Edge would cut these long promos and, I didn't see where it was going. Right now, I think they're starting to hit their stride and they're definitely more palatable as Brad said. And I have no problem with them main eventing either. They got the Dominic storyline on the side, which is something that I saw coming. And a lot of people just didn't think that he would turn on Ray. And I was like, listen, it's going to happen. He's going to do it. And Rhea Ripley's going to be the one who guides him. And that's what happens. So I think that's interesting too. And I think it's a good thing for Damian Priest. It's a good thing for Finn Balor. I think they're working well. And again, this is another example of, faction warfare with getting a lot of people on television, a lot of people over at the same time. And so I think it's a good thing. So we had Riddle and Priest in the main event. We'll talk about that right after we talk about what I'm about to mention, which we skipped over, was Candice LeRae made her return and didn't really get like a wild reaction like her, like Gargano got. Them being together, you would think the fans would react that way, but got a mild reaction, whatever. Faces Nikki ASH, ends up beating her with the swinging neck breaker off the ropes. After the match, Nikki ASH cries in the corner, takes off her mask. It looks like maybe they'll, get her a makeover maybe soon. So real quick, what do you guys think of Candice LeRae returning? To me, I just felt like she could have used some vignettes prior to her return, sort of get people ready for it. And also, what do you think of Nikki ASH and the mask and the crying? Do you think she's getting a makeover after this one?
Yeah, she's definitely getting a makeover. And I was a fan of Candice LeRae coming in. I think she looked great. I thought her moves were good. She didn't look rusty at all. Like, to me, she looked way better than, Dakota Kai looked coming back. I mean, I honestly, like, I think she looked great. And I have no problem with it, but I do agree with you, Matt. It could have used some setting up because not everything needs to be shock, surprise,
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking as you were talking, I'm like, yeah, vignettes, because I mean, I don't know. If you didn't follow NXT, you don't know as much about Candice LeRae, right? She did much more in NXT. Did she do much on the main roster?
No.
So that was my feeling. Like, did they expect the big pop? Although I guess the same could be said for Gargano. So I mean, I don't know why I was much more aware of Gargano than I was Candice LeRae, but I think he was much more prominent in NXT for longer. So yeah, I think, those old vignettes from back in the 80s to now, they work. That's how you get people over that the crowd's not going to be familiar with. So it could have benefited from that for sure.
100%.
And maybe it was the thinking was, okay, we'll bring her in. She'll kind of, maybe they did this on purpose, have her coming in as a new person that not that many people know. And Nikki ASH loses again to somebody and loses to somebody that not that many people know. and that sort of plays into her losing her stuff, and then going into the repackaging, which I also think Dewdrop's in the process of now. There was rumors of that a while ago of her talking to Triple H about it, and we haven't seen her in a little while. So I think she's getting repackaged. I think we're going to see that with Nikki as well. But I agree with the points that you guys made also, and we're going to take our final break, and then we'll go into the main event and our trivia, and we'll wrap everything up.
The Beyond the Mat podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Beyond the Mat podcast.
Alrighty, so the main event of Raw was Matt Riddle versus Damian Priest. Damian Priest kicked out of the Bro Derek in this match. This was a pretty good long match. Riddle ended up surviving this one and winning via pinfall. And then the Judgment Day attacked him. Edge came in and made a surprise appearance here to save him. We weren't really expecting that, especially because of the way that he got beat down 2 weeks ago. Edge challenged Finn Balor to an I Quit match at Extreme Rules. Get another Extreme Rules match. The one thing I like about Extreme Rules is that every match has a stipulation and is, it fits the Extreme Rules name, rather than just one Extreme Rules match and the rest just being a bunch of normal matches like we've seen in some of the Extreme Rules pay-per-views in the past. They're all matches that, we got a ladder match, strap match, a fight pit match, an Extreme Rules match, an I Quit match. They're all matches that are going to be extreme in a manner of speaking. So what do you guys think of Riddle and Priest? And what do you think of the I Quit match with Balor and Edge? To me, with a babyface and a heel in an I Quit match, I don't see a babyface saying I quit. So I see Edge going over in that one. What are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, watching Riddle and Damian Priest, it reminds me sort of the Sami Zayn AJ Styles match. You just got two great wrestlers, and they were long matches. You look through it and you look at the amount of matches that they have on Raw now and the time that they give them. It's a much better wrestling show. There's an attention to wrestling. They were great. And Damian Priest loses, but he looks strong throughout the whole match. I forget. It was a quick sort of pin for Riddle, the way that it happened. It wasn't, they both looked strong coming out of that. And then the way it just dovetails into Edge coming out, making the challenge, you've got a story there. And it's also got a very unpredictable nature. You don't know where this is all going. That's what makes it so great. I think for a long time, Raw, you could watch the pay-per-views, not Raw, WWE in general. You could watch all the pay-per-views and you could follow the stories. And a lot of times the TV was just to get you there and connect the dots, where, it really shouldn't be that way with the amount of money they're making on the TV deals. The TV should be also a focus, and it should have that anything can happen vibe. And I think that's what we're now seeing. Maybe you might have expected Edge to show up and they were in Canada, but you didn't know this was going to happen. It wasn't predictable to the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view is this coming, next week, and you didn't have this match. It wasn't leading up to it. It comes sort of out of left field, and there's a great story between them. You took the group away from me. I brought these people up. I was trying to show them a way in the business. You're showing them the wrong way. You're not teaching them the way I was. I was betrayed. It's got all the perfect elements to be exciting and have a reason why they're fighting. So I thought it was great.
Yeah, nothing more to add to that. There's not much more you could add to that. Frank, said a lot of the things that I was thinking, and yeah, it has a built-in story, and it's interesting, and it's a cool matchup that you haven't seen ever. So there's nothing. I have no complaints about it. I like it.
Yeah, I think I definitely was surprised because Edge is from North Carolina. I know that he got his start in Canada, but in North Carolina. So I was surprised to see Edge at this one, especially, regardless of what they said the injury was, I thought that injury was purposeful to write him off TV, and having him come back and having him in this high quit match. I think it's going to be a great match, him and Finn Balor. And, you know, Damian Priest and Riddle, you know, put on a good show. It was a good main event match. And, you know, like you said, these Raws and these SmackDowns are now shows you do need to watch they feel like you need to watch them to connect the dots. Whereas before, you could probably miss a couple of SmackDowns and a couple of Raws in a row and just watch a couple clips and listen to a couple podcasts and just watch the pay-per-view and then get through it. And now, you know, the live crowd's getting a lot to see, and we're getting a lot on television each week. After Raw went off the air, Seth Rollins attacked Matt Riddle. So we got more heat on that feud as well. Any final thoughts from you guys on the week of WWE before we get into our trivia question for the evening and wrap up the podcast?
Well, I'll just say it was great to have Frank here tonight with us, and hopefully he'll be joining us more in the future, and hopefully the audience enjoyed the show, and I'm excited to review Extreme Rules after that happens.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been a blast. This is great. Like we said, I don't know if it was when we were off air. It's like, yeah, this is the talk that I probably drive my wife crazy with when we're walking the dog, and now I got it out of my system. Right? This is
beautiful.
It's fun stuff. The only thing I'll add is just because I'm looking at the lineup that we had for that Raw, and you see stuff because it's hard to remember all their segments, right? So I'm looking here, and it's just like the perfect balance of. You got great wrestling segments that went, you know, maybe through 3 commercial breaks or whatever. Then you get your short little matches, but just a little backstage segment between Austin Theory and the Alpha Academy where they got the phone. It's for you, and it's Braun Strowman. Like, that's funny. You want to see that? Oh,
it was great.
It was awesome. And then all the stuff with Dexter Lumis, like in The Miz. I mean, that's funny. I mean, even if it's not your cup of tea, it's, you know, wrestling's a variety show, right? It's hilarious. And I never dug the Dexter Lumis stuff that I caught just briefly in NXT. Love how they're doing it here.
I'm sorry. I loved it when Austin Theory was saying, I thought you were going to show me Master Gable's method of winning. I didn't see any winning out there. It was really funny.
Yeah. And also
classic.
Braun Strowman called Austin Theory's cell phone, asked to talk to Gable, and, you know, told Gable that he was going to crush him on SmackDown or on Raw next week. And then Gable did the shoosh.
Oh, great.
Yeah. That's great.
But yeah. The Loomis stuff with the hockey player. Like when I saw, cause you saw all night, we saw different members of the security team down, like every time we saw something backstage. And then all of a sudden Miz comes in and sees them all down. He's like, they're here. And I was like, I wonder if it's going to be that hockey guy. And then the hockey statue starts moving. And I just think that some of the Dexter Lumis stuff is a little bit disturbing. Like, I don't know how much I like seeing him inside the Miz's house with the picture of his kids and all that. Like, I think that might be taken a little bit too far, but Dexter Lumis's mannerisms and his facials and all that stuff are extremely fitting for the just the role that he's playing right now. It's hilarious when he was coming out from under the ring in that cage match, he and with just the blank stare on his face, that was hilarious. Now, the one thing I'll say about all this Dexter Lumis and Miz stuff is, where was Ciampa this week? How come he was not with Miz to help him at all? Because we've seen him with Miz, you know, all this time, and he wasn't there this week, and Miz needed these security guys. And I wonder, is Ciampa somehow involved in this Dexter Lumis, helping Dexter Lumis do this to the Miz?
Wow.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Man.
Wow. Didn't even think of that. That is cool.
Yep. But you guys ready for trivia?
Let's go.
All right. Okay, and the question is, speaking of Edge, and speaking of the Attitude Era as we were off the air earlier, who did Edge face in his first ever match in the WWF, and what happened in the match?
Oh my God.
I think I actually know this. I'm not going to say I don't know who goes first here, but it's funny because I heard your trivia last week, and man, I didn't think I'd ever get a trivia question unless it's like older stuff because there's just so much content. But I think I actually know this one.
You can go ahead and give it a shot.
All right. I do believe in his first match, he did some move to the outside on a Raw, and either he got injured or his opponent did. And I want to say, was it Essa Rios? Am I totally wrong?
Not totally wrong. You're right about the summer. He did do the senton over the ropes to his opponent and injured his opponent. It wasn't S.A. Rios though, but you're close. It's not a popular name.
That's all I got. But yeah, I remember, but I don't remember who it was. I thought it was Essa Rios, but
I don't have a guess, but I did remember from the A&E biography that he did injure someone, I think pretty badly, in his first ever match.
All right. That's two wrong answers. The correct answer is Jose Estrada. He did do a somersault to the outside, and he incapacitated Estrada. And he thought his career was over at that time, but all these years later, it clearly is not. So that was a trivia question. Maybe it was a little bit too difficult considering that his opponent wasn't like somebody well known, but part of the reason he wasn't well known was because of what happened in the match.
Yeah, that's like a trivia question. You win like a $500 gift card for getting right.
Hey, I was going to give you guys one. I didn't tell you.
There you go.
But anyway, it was a pleasure having you guys on tonight. Any last words for you guys before we say goodbye to the listeners?
No, we will see you after Extreme Rules.
All right. Well,
excellent. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely, Frank. We'll have you on anytime you want, Frank. This was great having the three of us on here. I think that the chemistry was good. Hopefully listeners agreed. Thanks everybody for listening in to this show. Remember to follow us on Twitter at BeyondMattWWE. You can shoot us an email, matt@beyondmatt.com, and give us a 5-star rating. Leave a review if you have time. We're on all podcast platforms, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Mat. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a show.